Nick Delosio is here. On Monday, Yahoo bought Sumly. Sumly is a company that he created. It has an app he developed. The price was said to be $30 million. Here's the interesting fact. He is only 17 years old. The app, which is no longer available for download, summarized news stories for smartphones. Yahoo says they will use its code in their efforts to gain a greater share of the mobile market. The young developer will work in Yahoo's London office by day. He has to do that. You can't work for Yahoo and work at home. And he will study for his exams by night. I am pleased to have Nick Delosio at this table.
Thank you.
Good to see you. So tell me, what is Sumly and how did you come to create it?
So Sumly is a technology that I've been developing for about the last 2 years. And what it does is it automatically condenses and summarizes long-form text into summaries and snippets. Now, the idea behind that is when you're on a phone, you're rushed for time. You know, you're busy, you have to just look down and see what's the gist of something. I want to just get what's happening in the world right now. And so summaries provide this medium where you can skim through 50 summaries and get an idea of what's happening. And so, you know, over the last 3-4 years, I'd been teaching myself to program and was very fortunate to have worked with the Stanford Research Institute over a period of 2012 to develop this algorithm. And that's what Yahoo's buying.
You're a self-taught programmer?
Yeah, well, I'm still in the process. It's kind of self-teaching. You know, I always had a fascination for technology and design, and so when I was 12, the App Store was announced in kind of March 2008. And this is a true story. I went into an Apple store, you know, one of the retail stores a few days later, and was like, I want to learn how to program.
And you were how old, 12?
12 years old. This is 2000, it's a true story.
5 years ago.
Yeah, and this is in London, because that's, you know, that's where I live.
Right.
And the people at the retail store were like, we don't even know what a programming language is. So I was a bit disheartened, and I spent about 6 months kind of waiting for the App Store to go public. And when it went public, there was enough resources online to kind of teach myself some basic level of programming. And so I released my first app in that summer, and it was one of the first 3,000 apps on the App Store.
You had like a Mac Pro to do this?
MacBook Pro, and I actually had to, like, I wrote, my parents made me, like, write a little agreement or, like, contract, because the MacBook Pro is about $1,000 more expensive than the entry level. And they were like, why do you need all this computing power? And I was trying to explain, I wanted to do some, like, 3D rendering software. They're like, they didn't even know what that was. And then, and again, this was self-taught, and I bought a book from a bookshop in London called Foyles. You know, it's kind of one of the big technical bookshops, and so I managed to persuade them to get that MacBook Pro, and then I guess began the journey of teaching myself to program. And
did it take a lot of time? I mean, if you had a 12-hour day, would you spend 8 hours doing this? So
I unfortunately had the dilemma of school, full-time education, and homework. So it was really in the summer holidays that, you know, you'd have that 4 or 5 week period, and I remember some nights I would do, like, see apps as a project, so I'd spend 4 or 5 weeks doing one app, and I remember sometimes my time zone had gone a bit strange. I'd kind of get up at 12 p.m., kind of midday, work till about 4 a.m. sleep. And obviously my parents at first were a bit concerned. They were like, well, you know, you're 13, 14, you know, you shouldn't be taking these hours. But they began to see that I guess I had like a natural...
Yeah, they saw talent.
Yeah,
they realized it was serious and you knew what you were doing. Yeah,
and it was just, it was enjoyment. It was like playtime for me, you know, entertainment.
And so tell me how the Yahoo deal came about.
Sure. So as we were here earlier, you know, we launched the app Sumly November 1st of last year, and we received, you know, a great response. You know, we had almost 1 million downloads until.
I think that's a combination of things. Number one, it works as a product, as an application. Secondly, it's because of you. I mean, you got a lot of attention for this because of your youth.
I think fundamentally without the idea and the technology behind it, this wouldn't have happened. And
clearly that's true.
And you know, the way I emphasize this point is that when I started the application about 2 years ago, it was under a different name. It was called Trim It. And it was an iPhone app. And again, it was one of these kind of summer projects. After my revising for exams, sort of the idea. Took about 4 weeks kind of getting the original code, released it. About a month later, these investors from Hong Kong, who represented the private fund of the Hong Kong billionaire, you know, the tycoon Li Ka-shing, they reached out to me.
Now, how did they know about you?
So what had happened is I had released this application and had gotten fortunate in that Apple had obviously seen this as being a distinct novel idea.
Put it on a list of whatever.
Yeah, the new and novel, exactly, the new and novel application, and so TechCrunch and a few blogs began to write about it. There's a funny story with the TechCrunch article, and this is the article that, you know, the Li Ka-shing's people read. I stayed up in London for it to come out, and I ended up staying up till 4 a.m. London time. Now, the article was originally meant to come out at about 8 p.m., the night prior.
Right.
Now, 4 a.m. London time's perfect time in Hong Kong. It's about lunchtime, right?
Yeah.
And I always thought it's a bit funny, but my theory is that if it had gone out when it was meant to, Hong Kong would have been asleep still, and it probably wouldn't have got in front of... Exactly. Yeah. And it really is one of those moments where that event of obviously that person reading it and reaching out changed the whole course of Sumley and basically my life. So again, it was one of those weird, it was a fate or whatever, but it was a fascinating journey. And so they reached out to me, not knowing my age, and we had a phone call. And I was not trying to put on a deep voice, but I was trying to talk very technical and serious, and didn't let on it was just me who'd done the coding.
You were backed up by smart and brilliant people.
And it was a team, and we were in London, and at the end of the phone call, they're like, so how can we arrange meeting? And I think they were like, we want to do a phone call tomorrow at 11 a.m. or something. And this had been a night prior, and I said, I can't do 11 a.m. And they're like, why? Can't you just step out the office? And I said, well, I'm at school. and they're like, what, college or postgrad? I'm like, no, high school. And they're like, what, final year? I was like, no, 10th grade, 9th grade, which is a bit weird. And they ended up flying out to Hong Kong to make sure, from Hong Kong to London to make sure it was all legitimate, met my parents, understood that I had a natural fascination for technology. And then they said, right, let's back this, let's start.
What are you going to do for Yahoo?
So I'm going to be working out of their London office, and they're developing like a mobile hub in New York and in London. And my role will be trying to integrate this summarization technology into different facets, of the mobile organization. So I'm going to be working on the mobile team. And really what Yahoo's doing, and this is why I'm so excited by the opportunity, is they have these assets, these verticals. They call them daily habits. So it's weather, stocks, fantasy football, news is one of them. So news applies to Sumley. And the idea is that they want to create these personalized experiences for mobile phones, like an app, for each one of these verticals. And obviously news is going to be one of those apps, and this is where I'm going to be working with taking that summarization technology and integrating it at scale for the mobile device.
And at the same time, you'd be getting a degree from Cambridge or Oxford or somewhere.
Hopefully. I haven't been accepted into any university yet, Look, I would love to continue my education.
University of London,
yeah,
whatever.
Definitely, and Oxford or Cambridge would be a great place to do that.
Yeah, and so when they said the valuation we're going to put on this is $30 million.
Yeah, that's I can't confirm that. That's reported, so take it as you will.
We'll take it as we will. Let's assume we take it as $30 million, without knowing.
Yep, sure.
But we hope it's in the ballpark.
I can't say. But
I know you can.
Yeah.
So what are you going to do with all the money?
Look,
no matter how much it is.
Yeah, look, the money just isn't coming into it from my mind. And look, we were approached by a few companies.
This was not the only offer you had.
It wasn't the only offer. And the fascinating thing is that when we got, we began talking to Yahoo, it just became clear immediately. I spent some time on the campus, and I realized that this is a company that has such opportunity on the mobile landscape. Now you look at the mobile landscape,
which is the future.
Which is the future. As I said, I think there's 1 billion smartphones today. In 2-3 years, there's going to be multiples of that. 2-3 billion. So everyone is consuming content now on a phone. People are busy, like if I'm waiting in line for Starbucks or something, I want to just get information. And summaries can be the future of that information. If you think about it, if you like a summary and you want to read that full story, with a press of a button you can.
You get the full story.
You get the full story. But at least you have that like context.
Now, what are you summarizing here?
So
stories in the New York Times, or?
So in the previous version of the app, which is now being removed off the store because we're integrating the technology. In the previous version, we worked with News Corporation. We had a contract with them. So we had the Wall Street Journal, for example. And we were taking kind of RSS feeds and automatically summarizing them into these snippets. Now, going forward, we can apply it to news, but we can also apply it to other forms of information. It's kind of our choice.
Like what?
Wikipedia, for example.
Steve Jobs was a hero, which is understandable, but why for you?
It's the persistence that Steve Jobs had. It's his persistence. It's his tenacity thing. And I think there was what happened is, after he died, there was an interview that came out from like the 70s, and he did this quote, and I can't remember the exact words, but it was something along the lines of, "Most people don't ask." It's this, and I thought about that, and I was like, right.
Most people don't ask.
Yeah, most people don't ask. Most people don't ask for things.
Yeah.
And so they don't even. So if you, let's say, I don't know, you're a person, you want to do an app, and you release the app, and then you want Apple to feature it, for example. 90 whatever % won't kind of email someone at Apple or try and get in touch, say, check out my app. But there's the small group of people that will, and the famous example with Steve Jobs is he phoned up the founder of Hewlett-Packard, in the phone book and said, he was 15, and said, I want to get an internship, and he got the parts. And it's that kind of idea of...
It's either David Packard or, I think it was Bill Hewitt, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, it was one of them. So it's that idea of, just try, do it, like, have a go, because there's nothing to lose. You'll learn from it.
Yeah. And did you phone up somebody?
Yeah, I mean, what happened is I had the iPhone app trimmed, and I began kind of talking with a few journalists. And again, it was specifically to Apple what I tried. And for a number of years, I never got any response. I used to email, like, there was this generic email, right, at Apple where developer relations. Yeah. And for years, I would send an email, and they'd never respond. And one day, when I just launched Samly, they featured App of the Week. And that was like one of the biggest moments, like, from my professional kind of perspective. And I finally got an email back. So, but I was always doing it. I tried.
This is Adam Cahan of Yahoo. You know him, don't you?
Yeah, yeah.
He says Nick represents a generational shift in the kinds of things he is thinking about and what it means to be truly mobile. That generation is not just mobile first, they are mobile only. That's a different point of view. He's right about that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the exciting thing with this, if I talk specifically about the summarization technology, is if you think about, like, publishers, they've been writing content for hundreds of years, and it started off with for print and then online. Now, if you think about just from a spatial perspective, the size of a piece of paper, A4, is kind of what it's like on a desktop screen. Right. So if you think about when the printing press invented in, like, the 16th century, for about 400 years, there hasn't really been a change in the form of content people write until the mobile phone. Now, with the mobile phone, you basically take an A4 piece of paper, you cut it into fifths, you take a fifth. That's the screen real estate we're talking about. So how do you go about changing the content and information for a generation of readers who only consume on that small screen? And that's where I think there's so much power with a summarization solution, because it means that the pre-existing content that's been written for hundreds of years can continue to be written. You don't have to ask a journalist or a writer to write snippets. They can write the full story. But if you can come up with a smart, automatic way of then basically refining them for different screen sizes. So you take an Android phone, that might be one summary. You take an iPhone, that might be another summary. That's a really, really versatile solution.
Now, does the programming, does the algorithm do the summarizing? Is that what it does?
Yes. So the way, with not kind of getting into too much detail, but the way it fundamentally works is this thing called machine learning, and it's a subset of artificial intelligence. And what you do is you get a lot of human abstracts. So you get humans to summarize text, but you get them to summarize it in a way in which the algorithm does. So the computer is only taking pre-existing words. Right. So it's saying, sentence number 4, phrase number 15, sentence number 20, and that fit them together to form a summary. That's what the computer's doing. Right. Similarly, you get a human to think in that same constraint. Then basically you have what you would call perfect summaries. And you call this like a training corpus. And what you do is you say, each article that comes along, you get the computer summary, you get the human summary, you compare them. And the computer then tries and changes the way it forms the summary to adapt, to get to as close as possible as a human summary. You do that over time long enough, you begin to see patterns, and it's those patterns that form the basis of the algorithm.
This is what I was trying to remember. You said, quote, talking about Samly, you said, I see myself doing other companies in the Samly version of what I do in the next 20 years. This, which you've just done, will only be the first half sentence.
That is one quote. I think it's more metaphorical, like to be put bluntly.
You're walking away from your own quote.
No, I'm not. Look, in my career, in hopefully what is going to be a long career in technology and business in general, I think I'm going to hopefully come across other ideas that I feel are really big. And similarly to Samly, it could be game-changing in the sense that it's a brand new form of content. And the exciting thing is with mobile and technology, you look over the last 5 to 10 years, a lot of these big brand new companies are in the technology space. And so it's just a really exciting time to be a creative, I guess, because you can think up a brand new idea, and with the App Store, you can release it, and tomorrow your app can be alongside some of the biggest and well-known companies in the world. That's how it happened to me, and I'm sure will happen to others.
There is this, which every entrepreneur faces. Do I sell or not sell? The famous case you take from Groupon, and supposedly Andrew Mason had an offer of $6 billion.
Wow.
He chose not to sell. Some people say that that was a mistake. Mark Zuckerberg had an offer chose not to sell and went on to create Facebook and the market value that he has, or the market cap that he has. Why did you decide to sell rather than to do it yourself?
It's a fundamental question. I like to see Seung-Tai as not a game-changing technology, but something that has a lot of potential. And, I started this as a 15-year-old kid. I'm 17 now. I didn't want my inexperience or the fact that we were a small company to get in the way of that technology becoming as integral as I think it can be. Right. And I realized that with a company like Yahoo that's is hiring new people, it's encouraging entrepreneurs to join there, it would be the perfect environment, or literally to take the idea of summarization, the technology we have today that we've been developing over the last 2 years, and accelerate it, faster, better, quicker, right, and get it in front of hundreds of millions of people. That excites me as a founder, because it means that my original idea that I had in my bedroom is suddenly going to get in front of hundreds of millions of people, and that audience and scale is only possible at a company like Yahoo. And so the money didn't come into it, because if the money did, it might have been like, well, I wait 2 more years, I can get an exit of whatever the price it is. Right. It was actually, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to really have a stab at fundamentally changing the way people consume content on a mobile. Let's do it. And that's the approach I'm going to have at Yahoo now as an employee there.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much.
Great to see you.